See if foreign currency investing is for you.
You're watching WTVY News 4, your hometown news leader.
Today on the Chris Matthews Show, fighting to protect our victory. Will President Bush let the Islamic militants claim power in Iraq? Holy Shiite. Shiite Muslim pilgrims celebrate new religious freedom and express some serious Yankee go-home tood. Is this fervor the first sign of Iraq becoming the next America-hating Iran? The eye on Newt. Is he Rumsfeld's Rambo? Newt Gingrich delivers a multi-count indictment against Colin Powell. Is this another Rummy versus Powell skirmish? The real Mr. Personality. Senator Rick Santorum compares homosexuality to incest as he exposed the coming clash between the Republican right and the secular suburbs. Plus, I'll have some words about a Hollywood legend and one tough hombre, Kirk Douglas.
This is the Chris Matthews Show.
Hi, I'm Chris Matthews. Welcome to the show. Let's go inside. Campbell Brown is an NBC News White House correspondent. David Brooks is senior editor at the Weekly Standard magazine and a political analyst for the NewsHour. David Sanger covers President Bush for the New York Times, and Joe Klein writes columns for Time magazine. Campbell, was the president ready for this eruption of Shia anger and fervor in the last week?
I think they were surprised, and I think they've been pretty straightforward about admitting that, although publicly saying, hey, this is democracy. But part of the problem was that they were being advised by Chalabi, the semi-controversial head of the Iraqi National Congress, who's trying to work out a position for him in the new government. And this was a man who hadn't been back to the country for decades, so they never really built a liaison with the Shia population in the South and did seem to be a bit caught off guard.
David Sanger, when I was watching those pictures this week, I was reminded, like so many people our age, of what it looked like back in 79 and 80, of all those tremendous revolts of people in the streets of Tehran, bringing down the Shah. Does this have the firepower, this kind of public revolt of the Shia to bring down or to get us out of that country?
Completely different dynamic and completely different circumstances. But the comparison I think you have to keep in mind is perhaps one more of Yugoslavia or maybe even Japan and Germany after World War II, where we came into a country, became the occupying power, even though the White House doesn't want to use the phrase occupation, and you never really know what kind of forces are going to come unleashed after they've all been suppressed for 30 years. I'm not sure how much you should read into what happens in the first week or two, but certainly what did seem to surprise the White House was the fact that the Shiites were not only so well organized, but to the minds of some, they were also being incited to some degree by forces, agents coming in from Iran. And that's why you saw this very strong.
That's what Jay Garner said, the man who's trying to put together the interim government. Jay Garner says they're outside agitators, basically, but do we face a real threat of this dynamic building? And that 60% of the country, which is Shia, is simply telling us to go home.
It's possible, but Iraq is not Iran. It's a much less religious country. To me, the amazing thing that happened this week is that they are organized. And they're not the only ones who are organized. There's a liberal Democratic Party in Baghdad. I like liberal Democrats when they're in Baghdad. But these are people who've had no political life for 35 years, and suddenly, somehow, they're organized. Somehow there are groups coming up. That's the most hopeful thing that's happened so far amongst all the looting and all the chaos.
But how much time do we have to keep our imprint there, to try to develop, go ahead, Joe, our secular institutes, things that we would like to see them develop?
Well, there are two realities on the ground. One is that the U.S. military has to be there to maintain order and security in the country. The other reality is that the U.S. military cannot run the civilian transition, especially since the Shiites aren't even talking to us. Now, the thing to do at this point is what we did with Afghanistan, which is to bring in the 6 neighboring countries, in fact, bring the presidents to Washington and have Bush...
Which countries, Joe?
Well, Syria, Turkey, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait. What's the 6th?
So bring all the
Jordan.
neighbors and try to deal with all those transporter problems we have.
It worked with Afghanistan. In fact, the Iranians were very helpful in that process. And if the neighboring countries want to pull this thing apart, you're not going to have any success at all. But they all have an interest in stability and the absence of chaos.
Do you think Campbell, the president, would go for something big, a big casino like that, bring them all together and try to bring peace in that area?
That was going to be my question to Joe. I can't imagine the administration giving up that level of control.
Well, they did it in Afghanistan. I mean, you know, the fact is that the situation on the ground is different from what they expected.
Let's finish up here. We got to move on to another trouble spot that's in this administration. I want to ask you all, how much time do we have, David Sang, you start, how much time do we have to really control events in Iraq, the country we won the victory in? How long can we stay there and try to turn that into the country we'd like?
You've got sort of two questions within that, which is how long do we need to stay there to get the job done, and how long politically do you have the time and space to stay there? Mm-hmm. We've had long, successful occupations. We've had short, unsuccessful occupations. We've never had a short, successful occupation. Before the war, the administration was talking 18 months. The president the other day said 2 years. People who seem familiar with the dynamics of it suggest to me 3, 4, 5, 6.
Does everyone agree, quickly, does everyone agree we can stay that long? You're shaking your head.
I'm saying that we can't do it alone. I mean, we're going to have to involve other people, whether it be the neighboring countries, certainly, but also probably the UN ultimately.
We'll get back to some other points. Let's talk about the eye on Newt Gingrich. Newt Gingrich, one of Donald Rumsfeld's hand-picked advisors at the Pentagon, attacked Secretary Colin Powell's State Department this week as ineffective. Is this the Shiite Republicans going after the Sunnis, Campbell? I mean, what's this fight about? They won the war.
Well, it's not so much a fight, I think, as deep philosophical differences between both sides, between the Pentagon and the State Department. And I think what makes it interesting is that the president hasn't really put himself in either camp. He's let them both come in and duke it out in front of him. And you've had this sort of perception that since the war was so successful, that Rumsfeld was the one who was so up. Instead, they're attacking, the hawks of the Pentagon are on the attack, directing their attack at the State Department because, in fact, now with Syria, with North Korea, the president is saying, I'm going to let Powell take the ball.
Let's put this in popular perspective. The Wall Street Journal says the feud is now hard to ignore. And just look at these approval numbers for these guys. We sometimes forget these numbers. Colin Powell, 85% approval rating on his job as Secretary of State. Rumsfeld as Secretary of Defense, 75%. That's even better than President Bush at 73%, which is awesome. Dick Cheney, of course, is down at 54%. The fact, David, the Powell is so popular. Why do these guys keep slingshotting these shots over at him from the Defense Department and around the Defense Department?
Well, I think there are two reasons. First is the Defense Department spent an enormous amount of time focused just on Iraq. And now with the Iraq conflict winding down, there's this whole other world of issues out there. The second is I think that there is a general sense that with the war over, there's a Powell moment coming up here. The president has made clear that he does not want a military solution in Syria or in Iran, and he's certainly made clear he doesn't want a military solution in North Korea. All that leaves is the diplomacy that Colin Powell can do.
Which means do something in the Middle East.
Right.
It's incredible that the assumption around this table is that Newt Gingrich was speaking for the Pentagon. This was, when you read the speech, it was an incredibly harsh speech. But you haven't heard anybody in the Pentagon dispute Newt Gingrich. And so I would say that this is a very, very serious problem.
Why? He is, by the way, just to put this in perspective, he is on the Defense Policy Board, handpicked by Secretary Rumsfeld to help advise him. And then he goes out and takes this shot. And as you point out, no one over there has said, well, we don't mean that.
Yeah, he's not necessarily in good odor with those people, though. I wouldn't exaggerate the intimacy. But there were two parts of Gingrich's speech, one bad, one good. The bad part was blaming the State Department for not getting that second UN resolution, which I thought was unfair. But the good part, from my point of view, and it goes back to what Campbell said, deep philosophical point of view, conservatives have long felt the State Department doesn't believe in democracy in the Middle East. And they're not willing to upset the regimes that they have to court every day. And that's a debate that goes back for decades, and that's what Newt was really saying.
Was it fair to blame Colin Powell for not having the French on our side in this war, not having the Germans on our side? Was it wrong to blame him for not having the Turkish bases when, in fact, that was basically a Defense Department operation?
That was a totally unfair
Is it fair to blame Colin Powell for planning to go to Syria? Isn't that the president's mission?
No, and I think to the president's credit, the White House has come out very forcefully and said in defense of Powell, and granted the president and Gingrich don't have the best relationship in the world, but the president has said, hey, these are my decisions. You can't blame the Secretary of State.
It's also not the Pentagon's job to run United States diplomacy. I mean, they do a great job with the military. They should stick to that.
This little intramural thing's nothing new to American governments. It went on with McNamara and Rusk and all those guys back all the way back to FDR. Everybody knows about it. Here's one dangerous spot. When a memo gets circulated at the Defense Department that talks about regime change in North Korea, David, and the North Korean president, who may be a whack job to begin with, they use a common parlance about the guy, Jong-il, he reads it. Does he then say, I'm not giving up my nuclear weapons because you're coming to get me? Well, could that be the dynamic here?
It could be, but Kim Jong-il was interested in nuclear weapons long before George Bush got elected president. In fact, before his father got elected president. And so I can't believe that this memo would do anything other than confirm what is, a broadly shared thought that the United States would be happy if there was regime change in North Korea. That's a very different thing from executing it. And what was strange about this memo is that it suggested that the United States and China would team up to execute that.
Right.
The Chinese don't have a great interest in instability in North Korea, quite to the contrary. They don't want refugees over their border. They don't want a collapse of a government that would put our forces in South Korea on their border. So I think the big question about the memo is there really sort of a guiding philosophy?
But it could be, I mean, how do you handle a whack job?
Right.
I mean, that's sort of the issue.
Regime change is smart policy. Let's go through the options. You first, David. What are the president's options to deal with this very unstable leader up there in North Korea? What do we do?
There are no good ones. That's the first thing to say. But the question is, if you got this whack job over here who's dealing drugs to pay for his weapons and then selling weapons, do you either try to just pacify him, try to get him to calm down, give him a little Prozac, or do you say, we've got to get rid of him some way or another, not militarily?
How do you get him to do anything you want him to do once you make it clear you want to get rid of him?
I don't think you can. I think he's a whack job, so you can't, there's no way to negotiate.
How do we get rid of him? Explain, give me a regime change scenario in 30 seconds. How do we get rid of him?
There's no good way. He's got nuclear weapons.
Got to talk to him. Got to talk to him. Can I go back to state and defense? The last time we had this kind of public backbiting between state and defense was during the Reagan administration, when you had a series of ineffective, weird, and junior national security advisors. It is the job of the national security advisor, Condoleezza Rice, to ride herd on this, and she's not doing it.
We're going to come right back to talk more about this, also about George Bush's big victory in Iraq and how it might change politics in this country for a long time to come, some people think. But as we go to break, chimp expert Jane Goodall swung into Washington this week and gave Colin Powell some special Earth Day advice. You think those chimp calls might work on Rummy? Be right back. Stick with me.
The Chris Matthews Show is brought to you by Infiniti, makers of innovative high-performance premium vehicles.
Revolution or evolution, and they don't know how to react. So they stare or whisper or peek out in any real person. Because anything or anyone with such confidence and flair makes them wonder.
Introducing the 315 horsepower all-wheel drive Infiniti FX45.
Hi, I'm John Scherer, CEO and founder of Video Professor. You know, after teaching people how to operate their computers for over 15 years now, I'm amazed that there are still people that don't have computer skills, like Windows, word processing, the internet, and email. If you're looking for that new job, or maybe it's just balancing your budget, or even helping your kids with homework, these aren't handy skills to have. These are essential. If you're having trouble learning the computer, I'm going to help you out with a free learning lesson of your choice from Video Professor. Let me show you how simple this is. You put the CD in your CD drive. The lesson plays just like a video on your computer screen. The best part about this offer, this is free. You just pay a small shipping and handling, and I'll even refund that if you're not satisfied with my product. It's free, the risk is free, so what do you got to lose? Try my product.
To get your free computer learning CD, you must call now. Call 1-800-353-6618.
Stay with us. There's more to come on the Chris Matthews Show right after this. News, weather, and sports at your fingertips 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The WTVY News 4 website has all this and more, and it's just a keystroke away. But it's more than that. It's interactive. You can browse bulletin boards, shop online, even get restaurant reviews. Live Power Doppler Plus will let you check the weather before you go outside. WTVYnews4.com. Another reason WTVY News 4 is your hometown news leader. 50 years, half a century. WTVY News 4 reporters Wayne May and Mike Gerspan together have more than 50 years experience reporting your hometown news. Every day, Mike and Wayne work hard to bring you the news that matters. Their stories are accurate, fair, and presented with professionalism and integrity. It's their promise to you. Reporters Wayne May and Mike Gerspan. 2 more reasons WTVY News 4 is your hometown news leader.
Are you burdened by too much credit card debt?
When I was dealing with the credit card companies, I felt like I was worthless. They made me feel as if I didn't want to pay my bills.
They would call sometime late at night. It just was very uncomfortable to have them call all the time.
We make the minimum monthly payment, and it was covering just the interest.
What if you could cut your credit card interest rate dramatically?
I had a couple of accounts go to 0%. Some went to 6, some went to 9. A lot more of the money went to the balances.
What if you could cut your total monthly payments by 1/3 or more?
My payments were roughly around $500, and just here recently, my payment has dropped down to $277.
Slash interest rates, reduce payments, and get out of debt much faster with the Debt Relief Clearinghouse.
It's a relief off my shoulders.
I'm out of debt. I can breathe easier.
I finally have control over my debt. It's finally going away.
Call the number on your screen to dramatically lower your interest rates and get out of debt. Call the Debt Relief Clearinghouse now.
Let's get at it. Next up, are the times changing? Will the Bush win in Iraq cause a seismic shift in our own politics? At least one seer says so, and he's right here. In ways subtle and profound, the events of the past month will shape our politics for the rest of our lives. Says who? David Brooks. Make your case, buddy.
Well, listen, this is the most contentious war since Vietnam. It's bound to have some political and cultural event. So think of yourself as a 20-year-old kid. You don't know anything about Vietnam. You don't know World War II. You don't even know who we are. You look at the world. All you've seen is the military doing a pretty good job. The military being pretty honest. The U.S. asserting power around the world pretty effectively. You see this guy who looks like a wild-eyed idealist. His name is George Bush. He's a Republican. My point is that kid looks at the world a lot differently than those of us who experienced Vietnam. And in some ways, totally the opposite of the way people who experienced Vietnam think. And the categories for him now are going to shape his voting patterns for a long time. More likely to trust the government, more likely to believe in U.S. intervention abroad, different attitudes.
Well, you know, David paid me the honor of calling me a conservative in his new political lexicon, which meant that I'm the kind of person who puts restraints on wild-eyed idealists like him. In fact, you were in that same category, Chris. All I would say is this. Premature, premature, premature. We don't know what's going to happen in Iraq next week. We don't know if this splendid military victory is going to turn out to be a victory at all. We have all of those Shiites. We have the Kurds who might secede, the Turks who may invade. A million different things can happen between now and election
Let's
day.
talk about what all we know is going to happen between now and election. The Republicans are taking their convention to where?
To the latest date possible.
September in New York City. To almost coincide with September 11th.
And that's what I was going to say. If you believe David's argument, then in fact Karl Rove may well have been running the war, and that's how they've decided to run the campaign, that they can't sort of turn back their attention solely to the economy now because they have no idea what the economy is going to be like come election time, but they can run on national security and on the success in Iraq, and they're going to link the convention to September 11th, which some people believe may backfire, but they are willing to take the gamble. Mm-hmm. And then every event that you see the president out campaigning over the next couple of months will be tied to military success in some way. Just
how about the Wellstone effect? Back in the last election, just a few months ago, one party tried to capitalize on the death of Paul Wellstone in that plane crash and had a big event like this, a big obvious ritual event, and it broke bad for them. It looked like exploitation, David. Could this break bad for the Republicans?
I don't think they can run on Iraq, and they can't run on 9/11 because that's the past. What they can say is unexpected things happen. 2 big unexpected events happened in the last 4 years. Bush responded pretty well. We know we have a guy who can respond well to the unexpected. That's not a weak argument.
Can we talk about something sexier?
Basic law.
Rick Santorum. Rick Santorum. I got to break in here. Rick Santorum, okay? Rick Santorum is a conservative Republican. He schools his kids at home. Very traditional Catholic. I grew up that way. I know about his very traditional thinking. Is he in big trouble? Are the Republicans in big trouble, Joe, for his statement this week? Statements basically against the homosexual practice, the lifestyle of being homosexual.
Well, you know, I know Rick and Karen Santorum. I did a long piece about them for The New Yorker, and this really reflected his true beliefs. And I think it's certainly the kind of thing that the White House doesn't want to see Republicans saying.
But the president's standing behind him, as is the majority leader, Mr. Frisk, as is Senator Specter of Pennsylvania.
Quietly standing behind him. I think the attitude in America toward issues like this is tolerance, if not quite acceptance. And that's the White House attitude. Santorum is not acceptance, and that doesn't work to their benefit.
Could it be this is one of those cultural splits between, I hate to use the phrase, elite media, and the elite media says all the right things about tolerance and acceptance and different lifestyle choices, and the people out in the country go, I don't like that lifestyle choice.
It's interesting to see how the White House judged that, because in Trent Lott's case, which was our most recent comparison, the president got out after a few days and basically said that the comments were unacceptable. In this case, the president has never publicly said anything about this. And when we've asked his spokesman several times, I think Campbell did this again this week, the press secretary has said, I haven't asked the president about it.
Campbell, that's an unusual situation, and he says he doesn't get involved in Supreme Court cases, which started all this.
Yeah, but let me say, too, that they are, in a sense, trying to have it both ways. They have an event to promote their AIDS initiative, the $15 billion for AIDS, next week, with the White House signaling to Congress that they're willing to accept a bill that wouldn't include some of the anti-condom amendments that the social conservatives want. So that is the compassionate conservative George Bush trying to sort of push himself out there next week, I think in part to maybe counteract something.
You know, Paul Gigot of the Wall Street Journal has a good rule on this. Politically, he says any party that raises the gay issue loses. Doesn't matter what you say about it, but the American people just don't want to deal with the issue. So if you raise it from a conservative side or a liberal side, they just don't want to deal with the issue. So there's a short-term suffering, whichever party raises the issue.
Is there, let's face this, the Republican Party's in great shape to get reelected. The president's running about 70% in the polls. Everybody watching now knows the score. There's no strong Democrat out there. It's getting above 38% in the latest polls I looked at the end of this week. Could it be that the only really interesting politics today is the battle between, what you won't like to hear this, David, the Shiite wing of the Republican Party, the Shiite Republicans and the Sunnis, the more moderate Republicans? Then you're going to see a fight over taxes between these people. The more moderate people don't want this big tax cut. The conservatives do. The conservatives are happy with a tough line against the homosexual lifestyle. The moderates in the suburbs say that's killing us. David?
There's the fights within the parties are more interesting than the fights between the parties right now. The Gephardt thing in the Democratic Party, national health insurance, that's pretty interesting too. Within the parties, a lot of interesting feuds.
Yeah, I mean, at this point of the process, it's so early, and no one's going to have stature in the Democratic side when there are 9 candidates in the field. Stature has to be earned. But an incumbent president is almost impossible to beat unless he screws up in some way.
You know how you know which is the majority party? The party that's having the best intramurals, David. Because the Republicans are clearly winning because they're having the best feuds. Rumsfeld, we talked about a minute ago. Rumsfeld versus Colin Powell. Rick Santorum versus the Log Cabin Republicans. Let me ask you all as we leave today, what is George W. Bush? Is he a Rick Santorum Republican or a Log Cabin Republican? Where would you put him there?
I somewhere in the middle. I don't think he is nearly as conservative.
Goes both ways, huh?
Okay, you could put it that way.
We've talked about 3 Republicans, Gingrich and Santorum, the old Republican Party, and Bush, the savior of the Republican Party. Without Bush, this is a party in disarray.
David, is he a right wing or is he a moderate Republican or where is he?
I'm always impressed by the degree to which George Bush is willing to let these kind of debates between the hawks and the doves, between the different wings of his party, go on, because he realizes that as long as he doesn't have to take a firm position, he has positioned himself well.
He's a Karl Rove Republican. He's a politician.
Okay, thank you on that word. Thank you. Terrific panel. Campbell, David Brooks, David Sanger, and Joe Klein. I'll be right back to talk about the ragman's son who became Spartacus, Kirk Douglas.
O'Donnell digs in Game 7 of the World Series. Bottom of the 9th, 2 outs, the score is tied. O'Donnell calls his shots. High pitcher, bring me that fastball and see what happens. Here's the pitch. Oh!
Yes! We're going to need to find more work for you.
It was a home run.
You dropped your wallet down there.
Thanks.
Yep.
Scouting, where character counts. A weather forecast anytime you want it is available to you by calling the WTVY News 4 weather line. Updated daily, the WTVY News 4 weather line gives you all the information you want to know. High and low temps, chance of rain, or severe weather warnings are available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The WTVY News 4 weather line. Another reason WTVY News 4 is your hometown news leader.
It's great getting your emails. Keep them coming.
The Chris Matthews Show is brought to you by the Document Company, Xerox. There's a new way to look at it.
Okay, one more time. Where do we stand?
Less travel, more video conferences.
Limit the cell phone minutes.
That's not good enough. We're not leaving this room unless we can cut something else.
Can they really keep us here?
What about all this stuff?
What stuff?
All this stuff. What does it cost to create all this? Time, effort, people.
How much?
It could be millions.
Millions.
Come on.
See it grow. See it succeed. If you have an idea, a plan, a dream, see it with CIT.
Ask me anything about cranberries. I spent a good part of my life knee-deep in them. But when it came time to start figuring out retirement and all that, I was in over my head. I don't admit that very often. I found someone I trusted, and we put together a whole plan. Now I don't have to think about it too much. Suits me fine.
Retirement and estate planning from Mutual of Omaha. It's never too late to start planning for tomorrow. Begin today.
Well, it's a marvelous night for a moon dance with the stars above in the sky. Fantabulous night to make romance.
315 horsepower, all-wheel drive, and utility when you need it.
The night's magic seemed to win.
The new Infiniti FX45.
You know, the sun.
See it unfold. See it inspire. If you have an idea, a plan, a dream, see it with CIT.
Closed captioning provided by
Your pet's same exact heartworm and flea medications delivered to your home, saving you time and money. 1-800-PET-MEDS. We deliver savings and convenience.
I discovered the great Kirk Douglas in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Then came those wonderful Westerns. After that, the serious stuff, Paths of Glory, and Lonely Are the Brave, his personal favorite. Then Spartacus, the big movie about freedom from oppression, what we just saw in Iraq. Kirk Douglas fought for freedom in real life, too. When everyone else was afraid to, he broke the Hollywood blacklist by hiring screenwriter Dalton Trumbo. He won the President's Medal of Freedom for traveling the world, paying his own way, saying that freedom made this country great. This son of Russian Jewish immigrants and his wife Ann have never stopped giving back. For Alzheimer's, for kids' playgrounds in tough parts of L.A., for America and the dreams it stirs. Hollywood stars have gotten a beating lately for speaking out. Kirk Douglas is Hollywood at its best. A gutsy guy who never thought of himself as one of the heroes he played in the movies, but is. I say all this now because there aren't many like him, and I want him to hear it. That's the show. Thanks for watching. See you next week.
The 50K giveaway. Watch for the secret word of the day from the 24th of April to the 21st of May. You could win a share of 50K. Log on or mail into play a new word every day.
Watch WTVY News 4 at 6 for the secret word of the day. Enter to win at www.WTVYnews4.com.
Watch for the secret word of the day and enter to win a share of 50K.
Like a plague, poverty infects half the world's people. It's a ruthless killer, striking down men and women in the prime of life, claiming children who are defenseless against its wrath. But there is a cure for poverty, and it's in your hands. Through CARE, you can help people in the world's poorest communities fight for their lives and make a complete and permanent recovery. CARE overcomes poverty through agriculture, education, healthcare, small business, and more. Remedies that work together, helping poor people target the source of the problem, not just the symptoms. And that's a cure that can last a lifetime. To learn more, call 1-800-521-CARE or log on to care.org. CARE, where the end of poverty begins.
Start your day tomorrow with WTVY News 4 this morning.
The following is a paid program brought to you by the Cambridge